Welcome to Words Matter, Not Content, a Conversation. Today's topic is made up rules. I
got some rules I can make up, yeah.
I have so many. I can't wait to talk about all this. I'm an expert. So for me, when we say made up rules, what I mean is kind of these standards or expectations or just straight up rules that we develop over time and set for ourselves, and they kind of just become status quo. And they start dictating how we communicate, how we interact with people, what opportunities we think are available to us, like how we navigate the world. And we don't really question them.
From deep to shallow. There's a lot of different levels of rules that we just do because we're told to, or because it's societal norms, or
autopilot.
All the things, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So do you agree? Do you have any other different views on what you think made up rules kind of represents?
I don't necessarily have different views. I think it is what it is. We all understand these rules that come into play, the basics of just societal norms. But I guess I just want to challenge it with who the fuck made these rules? And why did you get to be the rule maker?
I love making rules.
Well, we know
and
this
I love
Virgo.
Following rules.
We know this Virgo energy over here.
That's
but yes.
some accountant Virgo Brescia that's wait, there's a rule, I'd love to follow it.
She's not an accountant anymore. But
still part of my soul.
It's who you are, yes.
Exactly. And so there's that part, and then but also the second you tell me to follow a rule, I'm no. So that's complicated, but that's beside the point. Okay.
Isn't this supposed to be a place where we have conversations? Just dismissal. Okay.
We have certain conversations.
Seriously. Okay.
I'm kidding. But
I
think it's worth kind of exploring where we get these. So how we develop these rules, why we have them. And so I think, sit on your therapy couch and we'll talk about your childhood and your upbringing, your family. Our family is our really first influences on us. And so they're the ones that, as children, they literally give us rules that we have to follow, right?
Of course.
I think one that I had in my family was kind of, not, this may be a little extreme, but don't speak unless spoken to. Or, don't just kind of be a quiet kid, especially in public, behave yourself, don't say anything, just be quiet and be good. Right.
Okay.
And my parents are just trying to have a normal outing probably. So they're just can you just be chill and not loud? And it comes from a place, especially as we get older and we see parents, it's I get it why you're telling your kid to shut the fuck up. But this is an example where that simple rule when you're a child can kind of become ingrained, right? And so something that for me personally I've kind of taken on and have been trying to unlearn is that rule of not speaking up and not speaking unless spoken to. I have more agency, right? It's I can take up this space, but it's a rule that I lived by for a long time, and it really limited, I think, a lot of opportunities in how I navigated the world. So I think that's a good example to start with. What do you think?
Oh, I think we should continue to stay on that topic for a bit, that example, rather. If it's okay, can we scratch that itch a little bit? Mm-hmm. Because the Brescia that you just talked about is not the Brescia that I know. And in fact, the Brescia that I know can't wait to speak with stance and kind of jump in on that stuff. So I guess my question is has that rule that was placed on you altered how you maybe not altered, but has it been a contributing factor to how you are not that as much now? Was that on purpose?
Well, I think
because you're trying to break this learned behavior that you were almost mandated. I guess we're talking about rules, right?
Yeah, I think I had to be very intentional. We grow up in this example with this rule, and then I see I have to first recognize how it's impacting me, right? It's easy to just live life and not become aware of these rules, right?
Awareness is a thing.
Yeah. So one, just becoming self-aware. So me being aware of this pattern and habit. Two, the desire to break it, seeing the value in breaking it.
Yeah.
And then just actively having to build this into my life. And so in moments where maybe in the past I would have sat back, not spoken up, not spoken my truth, kind of checking in with myself to be brave and be no, bitch, speak your truth, And
totally.
So, yeah, it's absolutely informed that, but it's taken a lot of, effort. to get to this place, and I'm still not perfect at it. There's scenarios where I can do it pretty easily, and then there's times when it's still such a struggle for me to like
1,000%. And
So,
I, as somebody who's close in your life, have seen both.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky to be close. I think that's the reason why you are more comfortable not holding back at times. And
He
just,
wishes I'd hold back now. He's like, shut up.
I think that like that rule, I know why they put that rule in. I'm just playing. But I think it's probably a comfort level as to why that's not as significant in our relationship, right? But it is interesting, like, because that was been mandated on you, and like how I want to say far removed. But let's dig in just slightly more if we can. When you're here right now, we're talking at Words Matter, and we're having this conversation. That rule definitely doesn't exist. But what happens tonight if you go to your parents for dinner? Mm-hmm. Does that just like somehow randomly just sit on you immediately? Like when you walk through the front door, is it like poof, rule?
Of course. I feel like a lot of people have this experience. I think especially like around the holidays, people experience this, and they'll, talk about it on social media where they're like, I'm a strong, independent man, woman, they, them, whatever, and like I'm living my life, and then I go back home and I immediately revert to being 13 in like different ways, whether it be like you're not trying to do your own dishes or your mom's doing your laundry, or more serious things where it's like family dynamics that like come to the surface. And so I think that's really common for like common experience for people. And so for me with my family, like there is still some of that as I enter like those moments with them, but there also have been times, more where I've learned to step up, and I kind of pick my battles in those moments.
Sure.
And pick the moments that feel right, because there's elements of like growth and wanting to develop that skill and break that rule, but there's also just like, I don't need to fight every fight, right? Sure.
There's value in things that you just got to determine where the value lies, and then where to pick at that scab, if you will.
Yeah, and so like I'm, there's these, like we're talking about early childhood kind of development, so I'm talking about like family, obviously, and then I'm curious to hear more about like how you think education or our school system impacts like this whole, how we get rules, and maybe you have an example.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Alabama, and you can almost graduate in Alabama by just saying yes sir, no sir. Or yes ma'am, no ma'am, right? Like that's just, discipline is at the top of everything.
Yeah.
And so education is very different. So how does that play out? They put a lot of rules on discipline and not enough on education. So they're quick to kick you out of school rather than keep you in so you can learn and do stuff like that. So that's definitely played a part in like my whole life, because I'm always thinking about acting a certain way, or acting to make sure that I don't get kicked out, or I'm not, pushed away from the opportunities. You have to act a certain way. You have to be this way. So that's definitely played a portion of my life. And it's complete, utter shit. Like it has nothing to do with your value, your ability. It's like discipline's a component, but there's also like depth of the intentions and like wanting to learn rather than just learning because you have to, or the way you research it. Like how are you a visual learner versus
people
like,
learn differently.
There's so many different things, and it's like we didn't get into any of that. We just said make sure that you sit your ass in that chair and don't say shit.
Check the box.
And if you can do that, you're gonna get at least a C. Like what the fuck? Like that's not education. So I guess that's how I would tie in education to this.
Yeah,
that's one rule maybe.
And I think you touched on a great point that you're like, it comes back to inclusion. Like the reason these rules become ingrained in us is usually from like a protecting, like to protect us from something or keep us safe, or like human beings, they want to be included, they want connection, and so you risk that connection if you don't follow the rule. And so that's kind of what it sounds like, where you're like, I won't be included in this class, or I'll miss this opportunity if I don't, follow the rules. And so like understanding that, the rule and your desire to follow it came from.
Which is interesting, right? Because like, so when I left school, I went to the Air Force, which is nothing but rules. And that did not last long.
You said more rules, please.
Yeah, can I get a couple more?
More.
Just completely like rules that make no sense just for the sake of it. You're not allowed to have your hair a certain way. What? That's like, what are you talking about? So like, but that's where I'm going. It's like, so maybe that did play a massive component in my life. Just like the parental thing for you, you're not that now. And it's like, I've lived a life of over like maybe 27 years as a creative. That's the furthest thing from that. Like everything I do in my life has nothing to do with what I learned in that school, at least.
That
like,
180. Yeah.
So like so maybe it does have an effect that just completely like alters your reality in some way.
Yeah. You either keep living by it, or you have to like you make the change and you're like, well, I'm a better person because of it.
Which is the part that I'm positive that you're going to want to get into is like that change and why and who and how and all the things. This is Words Matter, by the way. So we get into it.
Yeah. The last thing I kind of wanted to bring up in regards to, again, early childhood development or like our younger years and even as we get older, but is like the media. I think like the biggest example that like means so much to me on just like a personal level, but in just general is like the media portrays us, you know, people in different ways. I think like a good example is men, like be stoic, don't cry, don't show emotion. And so if you're watching movies, TV shows, songs your whole life that are like driving that message home, that's creating a rule for you to move through the world socially in a safe way where you'll be accepted, right? It comes back to that acceptance. Like you will be accepted as a man if you don't show emotion, so you don't. Whereas really like your authentic self is this complex human being who obviously experiences emotions, and that can be so detrimental. I'm not a man, I just obviously care about the men in my life, and I think socially and from a society perspective, we've seen the impact that that's had.
You know, it's really interesting you say that because actually a friend of mine I was just talking to the other day, she told me that when her mother passed, her father asked her, would you think less of me if I cried?
Oh my gosh.
And of course she was like, Dad, like what? No. Of course, cry. Like I maybe would think less if you didn't. Like, what are you talking about? You guys have been married for however long. So I think that rings so loudly to what you're saying right now, right? Like, 'cause it's like, men have been, they're expected, and so are women. Let's not discount that. But like, we're just using examples, which I have an example. I want to get into an example too, but men for sure have a thing that they have to live up to, and they're not allowed to break that for sure. And it's not just women, it's men as well. And so, but what I want to get into from the media is maybe left field, but it's like, I'm not queer, but I've been told I have a queer heart. Like I'm just like a strong ally, and I have a lot of friends who are queer, right? And I'm somebody who has spent some time in the queer community, but more recently, like a lot more of my friends and like closer friends are bringing me tighter into this community, and I'm getting a chance to see it from a different vantage. Yeah. And it's like, even somebody like me I was a professional dancer. Like I spent my life around plenty of gay people. My vantage and understanding of the queer community was higher than your typical, if you will.
Because of the exposure.
Because of my exposure, absolutely. But even my vantage was skewed based on how media portrays queer community and what they want you to believe that they are. And it's like, once you get an opportunity to just be in this community, it is literally 0% different. It's just people. It's just doctors, attorneys, musicians. It doesn't matter. Queer just happens to be your sexual orientation. That's it. It doesn't change your ability on anything else in life. And they like to make these complete crazy stories about these people because they're queer and it doesn't fit into what they want to call normal or what they want it to be in terms of their rules and how they want to present to America or the world. And it's like, it's clear that you're full of shit. It's clear that you're full of shit if you've taken 5 minutes to step onto the other side of that lens. So media definitely pushes their narratives and their rules and all these things.
Yeah, I agree.
But again, I ask that fucking question, like, who makes the rules?
It's our culture as a whole, you know, and like think about the rules. This is a great example. Like if I think about my like baby boomer parents and the rules they learned from their parents, you know, growing up. Is when they were kids, their parents, you know, instill rules and all these things. And my parents lived their whole life according to these made-up rules, right?
Because that's what they're just following what they know. They're just following the snow globe.
The rules that Gen Z kids are learning right now, or Gen Alpha at this point, from their parents that they're going to go through the world living by, are wildly different, probably, right? Because culture's differently. Yeah. Culture from our like baby boomer parents to now is influencing the type of rules each generation's going to live by.
That's fair.
So I think that, like as a whole, is the bigger picture, really. Yeah.
Side note, anytime that we start talking like generations, I get into like a weird kind of like anxiety. Cause like millennials, zillennials, Gen Z,
You literally don't know what they are.
I have no idea what any of them are. I'm like, bitch, what age group?
Like older and younger. I'm like, just keep up, man. Oh my God.
I'm like, I'm not dumb, I swear.
You're like,
But I'm like, literally last night was New Year's. I was out and this girl was like, am I the only millennial here? And I said, maybe. I have no idea what you just said to me. And she looked at me weird. I said, what age group, baby? What's it? I'm lost.
they're like, oh, so you're a baby boomer. Okay, got it.
And I
Yeah.
was like,
You old as fuck.
she was like, I'm 31. I was like, okay, no, I'm 41. She goes, what? Then I felt really good. It was nice.
We like that.
We like that.
Yeah. So like the next kind of influence I wanted to talk about is social scripts.
Okay, following you.
So these are kind of like communication patterns that we learn to navigate social scenarios. To stay, again, with like the effort of staying like safe, connected to the people around us. And so I think some examples of this are you learn to say, like, ask me how I am.
How you doing?
I'm fine.
Yeah, bullshit.
Yeah, I'm not fine.
Oh.
Some shit's been going down. You know what I mean? And so and that's why I just say I'm fine.
Damn.
Because as soon as I said, no, some shit's actually going down.
No, I'm gonna challenge that one.
No, I'm
it's because of the way you did it. You were like, I'm not fine. I was like, God damn.
No, but think about like all of the conversations we have like casually with people where we're like, yeah, we're fine. And it's like, you're not fucking fine. But you've learned that will get you through the social situation. You don't have to be vulnerable. You don't have to share.
Totally.
And like, of course, there's times when it's okay to say you're fine if you're not fine. Like, all of this is on a spectrum, right?
There's no right or wrong,
yeah,
sure.
There's no right or wrong. But if you're always only saying, I'm fine, when you're not to anyone in your life, like that seems like a made up rule that you have to say that, and it's keeping you distant.
Totally.
And it might be keeping you like you think like in your social circle because you're not like bothering anyone or burdening anyone, but really you're just keeping yourself far away. So that's one I think of when I think of like a social script.
Just putting my own note on that. I've actually recognized that in myself that like when I'm not fine, I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm not good. Like those kinds of things. So I don't say I'm good or I'm fine anymore. What I say is, I'm okay. How are you? Mm-hmm. Because for me, I think saying I'm okay is honest. Mm-hmm. And it's an invitation for you to ask if you'd like to be involved to understand more based on maybe the time restraints that you have at the moment or like your level of interest, like all those things. Yeah. So like if you ask me like, yo, how have you been? I'm like, I'm okay. How about you? Now you want to know more or you don't. You're like, I'm good.
Yeah. We keep
I'm out. Yeah. Oh, well, they don't care. Exactly. Cool. So that it's a way of being honest. It's a way of being vulnerable. I love to lead with vulnerability.
Yeah.
And also it offers an opportunity for them without obligation.
Yeah. And I think that
listen to that little Brush of Hardy nugget. This is very succinct and put together. Holy shit, maybe I'll process to talk these days. Okay.
Look at him go. A single sentence. You nailed it.
Spit it the fuck out. Kevin Hart, ladies and gentlemen. Kai Cenat, Kevin Hart. One of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Oh my God.
I felt attacked. Go on.
Felt attacked. Yeah, and so I think, like I mentioned, we do these things. We follow these social scripts to avoid conflict. Guilty.
Yeah, not for me, but yes.
Yeah, I hate conflict. Ugh.
Quite enjoy it.
I'm trying to get better at that.
I can help.
Can you? Can you think of any other kind of social scripts that other people could relate to potentially?
Talk about putting me on a spot.
Yeah.
This is where I just take 20 minutes and then we'll edit it in. So, got it. How about in a relationship when the other person kind of avoids difficult conversations because they think that it's being a good partner? Like we don't want to talk about difficult things, or we kind of just sweep it under the rug, or we let it build up, or you should run like hell. Yeah.
I'm out.
So I bring this up because I am literally the exact opposite of that. I think, as we all know, I love to right at it, steer directly into the crash, have the conversation, let's put it in the spotlight, right? And so because of that, I think you are a life coach, so you can let me know, but I think we typically are wired, maybe we can adjust it, but we're wired to love the way we want to be loved, right? Like we tend to give in the same way we want to receive in a lot of things until we've learned that it's not.
Until you
start
actively
to
do other things. Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
Because of that, I'm like, hello, you see me, like I'm on these conversations, I'm talking about it. Why can't you do the same when something comes up? So like, I think this is potentially one of those societal scripts where people just kind of, they don't really talk about things because they feel like you're supposed to just let that be. Or, you know what? I got there. Maybe I didn't process the talk. Happy wife, happy life.
Yeah.
Fuck that. And I say that with such intensity. Fuck that. And let me tell you why. Because happy me and happy you is happy us. Let's just discuss it. Yeah. If you're unhappy, I want to know. That's my position. Please let me have that conversation with you. And I hope that you feel safe enough to do the same. So when we say this thing like happy wife, happy life, it makes it seem like all you got to do is keep her happy and everything will be great. But then that's dismissing your needs or what you may want. And it's also making it where you're offering a space for her to not talk about anything real, just keep her happy. Well, that's undefined.
And like, are you even keeping her happy?
And is she even does she even know what happiness is anymore at that point? Like,
yeah, I think that's like a great thing. Cause I mean, that's even great. Cause there's like the social saying that goes with it, happy wife, happy life. It can go both ways. Obviously.
And that social saying, sorry to cut you off, but that social saying is almost, in my opinion, degrading. It's like, it's almost like just keep her ass happy so she doesn't fucking complain. That's at least on a male side. When I hear men saying it in like men's circles, it feels that way. And I've never really fucked with it.
No, I mean, it's not a great saying. Like, it's like, there's almost no positive connotation to it. Yeah, it's like a guy just being like, oh, if I can just keep her happy, I can just do what I want. And but also minimizing his needs potentially to keep her happy. There's like multiple ways of looking at this.
Totally.
But I think, regardless of like how it comes across, it's a result of our culture. This coming back to the bigger picture. That saying comes from a time, probably, I don't have all the stats on like where the saying came from exactly, but like it probably came from a generation where that was needed in order to keep things safe and avoid conflict. And so now it doesn't. That's
unfortunate.
Yeah, it's not a healthy thing. And so I think you're right that that is a rule that some people need to unlearn. Like, I think I'm a good example of someone who tends to steer clear or has a desire to steer clear of confrontation. Like, my natural instinct is like, I don't want to rock the boat.
I would agree with that.
I don't want to make someone upset. And so I've had to, again, I had to first become aware that I was doing that.
Sure.
Because it's just normal.
Self-awareness.
You just put up with it.
How are you to know that that's outside of normality when it's just everything you've ever known? Especially, like you said, learning it at a young age from your caretakers, people who are feeding you, clothing you, housing you, all that stuff. You respect and trust those people. Yeah. Why wouldn't you follow their norm?
Yeah. And so it becomes your norm, and you just end up like shoving down your emotions to keep everyone around you happy. And it ends up you're not happy, they're not happy. Like it's not the move. And so recognizing that was a pattern that was happening, that I wanted to change it, and then like actively practicing it day in and day out, which is not the most fun thing to do for me, but an absolutely necessary part of my journey. And on a positive note, has created so many like deeper connections with the people in my life where I've been able to practice not, allowing myself to rock the boat, allowing myself to share and potentially cause, a little temporary disruption, but then ultimately leads to deeper connection.
Well, and you know what, for me specifically, and you and I have talked about this before, and I think this is true across the board with every human ever, but that's a big statement. But I think confrontation adds opportunity for, like you just said, deeper connection. I am always looking for how you handle the situation when things are choppy waters, rough waters, in comparison to smooth sailing. Mm-hmm. That's how I get to know you. Because we're always allowed to put on a face. It's easy to put the face on and show up with the mask and do all this stuff, and everything is great, especially in a romantic setting, right? The first honeymoon period, whatever you want to call that area, It's like, it's great. The newness is lovely. We love this shit. What happens when you get in a fight? What happens when you don't see eye to eye?
Yeah.
Like the first time, can you navigate that? And can you show up inside of that? Or are you running away from that?
Yeah.
And like, there's two different sides of that. One side is like, to your point, like, ooh, I didn't like that he or she did that. I'm not gonna, I'm just, you know what, just gonna like let that live and just see how I feel about that later. Oh, you know what, I'm past it now. Okay, cool, whatever.
I want to be a good partner. So I was just thinking about, we've covered a couple different lenses. We've talked a little bit about like romantic and family and whatnot, but I think a place that this also shows up that can like severely limit our life is our work, like our professional life. Like that.
I got the easiest, if we're doing social scripts, I have the easiest one ever.
Okay.
Yes. Just that. Can you guys do that? Yes. Do you feel like you can? Yes. Can just being a yes man entirely.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you're never allowed to challenge your boss, or you're never allowed to challenge status quo in any way.
You're not allowed to ask for more.
You're not allowed to ask for help. You're not allowed to do any of that, especially in America. It's go, 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 go. We're 19-hour days, bro. It's New Year's Day. You haven't fucking put $300,000 in the account yet? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, this is America. You're always moving. So you're afraid to say you can't. You're afraid to ask for help. You're afraid to do others. So you just keep saying yes.
Yeah. No, that's such an easy one and something most people fall victim to. And I think like the people in my life that I've worked with that are able to advocate for themselves and not be afraid to ask for more have seen the most success because they're pushing the boundaries. They're questioning the rules. And what you realize is that most people say yes to you when you ask for new things, when you ask for that promotion. Like we put so many limiting beliefs on ourselves that like we can't do the work at that next level, or we don't deserve that much money, or we aren't capable of X, Y, and Z, and we tell ourselves all these things and we stay stuck. And the people that are actively willing to challenge those rules go far.
Okay, so something I was thinking about as you were talking about that is like I'm developing a leadership development course right now with a friend. And if I was like the director, if I was the leader and I had two employees, one person was saying yes to any and everything I asked them to do, and the other person was not necessarily pushing back in a negative way, but challenging the approach or challenging things or asking for help. As a leader, I feel like that person cares more. They are here for more than just picking up a check. They are here because they're trying to be involved, and they also are starting to show leadership quality. Because they're questioning the approach, or they're questioning how we can get it done better and more efficiently.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think, just note to people with that whole yes man mentality, I don't think that that's serving as much as we think it is.
No.
But I think to your point, like it's a rule or a social script that's been built that people just do whatever you got to do to keep on giving and giving and giving so you don't lose your job.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's serving us anymore, especially in 2025, I definitely don't think that's the case.
And like, I totally agree. Like we have to learn to get away from that. I do think with any of these things though, I probably said this too many times at this point, but like there's balance though, like in context. Okay, so the whole yes man concept, like saying yes to shit. Okay, maybe you just graduated from college and you're literally brand new.
Fair.
You're learning a skill. It's like
you're an intern.
Say yes for a couple months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not to say that like you listen to this episode and then you walk into work the next day and think of like, don't have relational intelligence or think about
totally
the place you're in your life and how to navigate that. Like you have to give it thought still. And so I think it's more just about recognizing that the rule exists and how can I use it to my benefit and how can I challenge it also to my benefit, right?
Well, yeah, and also just remember, right? Here's a plug for Words Matter. Like, this is our topic, and our job is to try to show you this side, and this side, and this side, and potentially this side. And we hope to do all those sides. Sometimes we miss and don't get every side of the bottle, but you know that what we're saying is specifically this side on this topic, and you know there's more than one side. But with that, to your point, let's talk about how to recognize with our life coach. Like, how do we start recognizing that this rule or this social construct or the social script or whatever you want to call it is no longer serving us, or it's no longer fitting my identity or it's making me feel some type of, how do you recognize?
Yeah. So again, it's about, first is awareness over everything. And so, you listen to this episode and you're like, oh shit, I've never really thought about like the rules that I'm living by. I've never like dived deep into that like conversation with myself. And so I challenge you to, as you start making decisions or recognize certain behavioral patterns, like take time to pause and ask, like, am I acting or making decisions from a place that feel like authentic and what I truly want for me out of my life that aligns with my values, XYZ? Or am I just on autopilot right now? Am I on autopilot doing the same thing over and over again? And so it's gonna be a little clunky at first. It's gonna take a little work to be like, okay, I have to pause and think about this, but you'll start to recognize that it's actually probably just a few rules that are guiding most of your life. And if you can start like tailoring those and figuring them out, it'll apply to lots of different situations, right?
Totally.
And so I think that's one thing. And then second is diversifying your community and your friend group. Because
absolutely,
I, grew up in Montana in a certain way. You grew up in Alabama. Some other, people grow up all over the place, different like communities, cultures, ethnicities, all this stuff, right? That impacts the rules that you're following, right? Like, because
they're following different, because their normality has been built from different caretakers inside of different cultures, inside of different confines, and
completely different normals. And so by having lots of different people in your life, you get to see how they live, compare it to yourself, and be like, oh, like, this is different. They just automatically act like this, and I act like this. Like, can I act like them?
Can you give us an example?
You know what I mean? So I think, let me think, an example.
I have one if you don't.
Oh, go for it.
Yeah, so in the South, in Alabama, right, Thanksgiving is like a time for a feast. Everybody's coming over and all the things, right? And I think it's like the South. It's just a reason to have a barbecue or a reason, whatever. People love to get together and eat. And then I met somebody when I lived in Colorado. I was like, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? Blah, 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 blah. And they said, I don't really celebrate Thanksgiving. And I was like, why not? They were like, it's kind of a weird holiday for me. It doesn't really make sense. We just, killed off an entire group of people and then we want to celebrate.
Yeah.
I now do that. Because that changed my normal. By having this person in my life say that, I was like, that makes so much sense and it resonates with what I think about people.
And your values.
And my fucking values, and I'm going to honor that. Fuck Thanksgiving.
Fuck Thanksgiving.
Like, for real, like, you just exterminate an entire fucking race of people, and then you're like, we're grateful. Okay, well, sorry, not to make this like a political thing, but
that's a great example.
It's a good example of like, your normal is different than somebody else's, but you could learn from theirs if you're open to learn.
Yeah. I think the other side of that is like seeing more people in your life breaking rules gives you permission to, right? And so I feel like I've had a couple different like key individuals come into my life in the last several years who I've seen operate different than me, actively break rules that have then really benefited them, and it's given me permission to do the same for me. Like, oh, if they can do that, I can do that, right? And
totally.
So it's like having that exposure at the end of the day is going to help as well. So that exposure plus being intentional about identifying those patterns and doing what you can to break them is really where Recognize comes in for this particular topic.
Sweet. All right. Well, then I would like to land the plane if we shall. Yeah. Is that okay with you? If we can? I don't know. Shut the fuck up. We're trying to land a plane.
We're landing the plane.
I'm landing a plane over here. You talking shit. Okay.
Sounds about right.
What I would like to do on this episode, a little different than every ending that we do, is look directly at this camera and give them some advice of perspective. We are not professionals, but like give some maybe like one thought about rules that you want people to leave with.
Fuck the rules.
That's your whole thought.
Fuck the rules. Be your authentic self. Do you.
Okay, cool. I love that.
It's simple.
Yeah, mine is similar. There are no rules. And if there are, break them. Literally, the most successful people ever always break the rules. Now, I want to be very clear. Yeah. There's a difference between rules and laws.
Yeah.
Don't go to jail. Don't be dumb.
Don't jaywalk.
Yeah, okay.
I had to do it. Guys, I will not jaywalk.
Yeah, but it's a whole different conversation, and it's killing our point. So our point is...
Yes, don't break the law.
Don't break the law, but break all the fucking rules. We've seen so much success live inside of people who are unafraid of breaking the rules, because at the end of the day, a rule If you break a rule, you might make somebody uncomfortable. But what is discomfort? Discomfort is quick. That person could be uncomfortable and then they're going to get over it. Because you have to do what you got to. You get one life. Only one. You have to do what you can with that. And what do you want to accomplish? And if there's this societal rule of don't do this because it looks like, fuck that. Do it.
Fuck that.
Just do it.
Fuck that.
Your success is lying on the other side of your ability to get out of your own way and just get it done, whatever that may be.
Words matter, y'all.
Words matter.